In example 4, we are going to evaluate composite functions graphically. So there is going to be no formulas to go off of. Again, this is an evaluation problem, so you're plugging in a number and getting a number out, okay? So let's talk about how to do this. You're gonna have to read everything off of the graph, okay? So what I'm gonna do in this first one, okay, so notice you have two different functions. The blue one is function f, and the red one is function g. I don't know if you can see these tiny little names of the functions right next to the side of them. So blue is f, red is g, okay? So the first one in part A, you want to find f of g of 2. So essentially, your input to the function f of g is 2, and you're trying to figure out what the output would be, okay? But again, you don't have any formula to go off of, okay? So this is what you're going to do, okay? We're going to rewrite this, okay? And I'm going to color code it here so you can see it, okay? So f is on the outside, so this is f of g of 2, okay, which I'm putting in a different color there, okay? And we're kind of going to work this problem like we did example 3, okay? I'm going to figure out what this number on the inside is, okay? So we're going to figure out what g of 2 is, and I'm going to keep that in red so you can see, okay? So this means go to the g function, which is red, okay? And you're going to plug in 2 to that function, okay? So if g of 2, remember, and I'll write out to the side here just for this first one here, g of 2 is the y value when x equals 2, okay? And that is only for this is for the g function, okay? So if you remember, we learned how to do this back in section 3.2, I think. Okay, so you need to go to your function, find where x is 2. Here's where x is 2. You need to look at the red graph because it's g of x. Okay, so it's talking about this spot right there. Okay, so this spot right here, okay, you're looking at the y value. G of 2 is 5. Okay, so in my next step, I'm going to write this. The inside, so g of 2 is the same thing as 5. Okay, again, I went to where x is 2, went up to the g function, and read off the y value. Okay, so g of 2 is 5. G of 2 is the y value when the x value is 2, if you're applying the g function. Okay, so now the problem becomes this. Okay, now you're plugging 5 into the f function. Okay, so now this is your x value. Remember, whatever's in parentheses is your x value. Okay, so I'm going to go to where x is 5. So right here, I'm going to go up to the blue function because it's f I'm looking at. Okay, and I'm going to read off the y value. Okay, so I'm looking at this point right here. Okay, read off the y value. It's going to be 4. Okay, so the final answer here is 4. Okay, so that's how you want to do these problems. Okay, so let's try the next one. Okay, so when I do g of f of 0, okay, I'm going to write down g of, let's see, f of 0 like this. Okay, all right, so I need to work on the inside. Okay, so we're going to keep g on the outside. Okay, and we need to figure out what f of 0 is. Okay, so f of 0 means what is the y value on the f graph when x equals 0. Okay, so I'm going to go to where x equals 0. Okay, I'm going to go to the f graph, which is the blue graph. Okay, and so I'm actually, that's the origin. Okay, so what's the y value? Well, it's 0. Okay, so f of 0 is 0. Okay, f goes through the origin, 0, 0. Okay, so now that means that 0 is my input to g. Okay, so again, whatever's in parentheses, that's your x value. Okay, so go to where x is 0. Now you're applying the g graph. So go up to the red graph. What point is on the red graph at x equals 0? Okay, it's going to be right here. That's the point 0, 1. Okay, so if x is 0 on the red graph, the y value is 1. So the answer is 1. Okay. All right, so next one. G of -4. Okay. All right, again, we're going to leave the outside function alone. We're going to concentrate on what g of -4 is. Okay, so you're plugging -4 into the g function. So whatever's in the innermost parentheses here, this is your x value. Okay, so go to x is -4 right here. Go up to the red graph. Okay, find that point. Okay, look at the y value. The y value is 4. Okay, so g of -4 is +4. Okay, so now this is your input to g. Okay, input, that's an x value. Okay, so go to 4 on the x-axis, go up to the red graph, which is g. Okay, write down the y value, 3. So that's your answer. Okay, last one, f of -2. Okay, so I'm going to leave the outside function alone. Okay, now my x value is -2, so you're going to go to x equals -2. Okay, and we're going to look for the corresponding point on the f graph, which is the blue graph. And if you notice, there's no f graph over here. Okay, so you're not going to get an output. Okay, so I'm just going to write no output here. Okay, so what that means is this whole thing is undefined. You won't get an answer. Okay, so part D is undefined. All right, last example in this section is going to be examples 5 and 6. It's the same concept. We're just going to do 2 of them. Okay, and I always tell everyone this is the easiest thing we do all semester. At first glance, it may be like, huh? But it really is kind of the easiest thing we do all semester. Okay. In examples 5 and 6, you are finding the components of a composite function. You're actually going backwards. You are given the composite function, and you have to come up with the original functions f and g, so that if you compose them in the order stated, you get this function. Okay, so that's what this means. Okay, you're looking for the original functions f and g, so that if you compose them in the order stated, you get that composition. Okay. All right. So it's actually pretty simple, like I said. Okay. So in example 5, here's your composite function. Okay. It's already put together. Okay. So we are looking for f of g. Order matters here. It matters which one is going to be the f of x and which one is going to be the g of x. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and write down we are looking for f of g of x. Okay. So what this tells me is that f is the outside function, so I'm going to label it. F is the outside function, and g is the inside function. Okay, all right, so here's what I want you to do. Okay, this is the composition. Okay, that's what we're trying to break down. When you look at this composite function, what is on the inside? Well, that's on the inside. That's what's inside the square root. So guess what? That is your inside function, x squared plus 1. Okay? And then to get the outside function, we've already used this, so I'm going to scratch it out. Okay? So what's left? Well, square root. Okay? That's not a function. You need a variable. Okay? So the outside function is going to be the square root of x. And that's it. Okay? And the cool thing is you can check yourself. Okay? Go ahead and compose the functions and see if you get h of x. Okay? So to check, I'm going to do f of g of x. So I'm plugging g into f. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write down f. Okay? F is the square root of x. And then I'm going to plug in g of x. So everywhere I see an x, I need to replace it with g of x, which is x squared plus 1. So I'm going to get the square root of x squared plus 1, which is what I was trying to break down. So you know it's right. Okay, that's all you got to do. All right, so let's try example 6. Okay, so same kind of problem, different composite function. Also notice the order is different here. We're trying to find g of f. That's important. Okay, so let's write this down. We're trying to find g of f of x, okay, which is the h function, which is equivalent to this. So g of f of x is equal to the absolute value of 2x plus 1. Okay, notice if we're doing this, g is now our outside function. So I'm going to go ahead and label that. F is on the inside. Okay, so go ahead and say, if this is my composite function, what is on the inside? Okay, well, inside the absolute value is 2x plus 1. So that's going to be my f of x, my inside function. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of cross it off because we've used it. Okay, and then what's left? Well, the absolute value bars are left. Okay, but again, you need a variable, so stick it inside. Okay, so that's your f of x and that's your g of x. Okay, and you can check yourself. Okay, so if I form g of f of x, I am plugging f into g. So I am going to write down the g function, the outside function. So that's absolute value of x. Okay, and now I'm plugging in f of x. So wherever I see an x, I need to replace it with f of x, which is 2x plus 1. So I end up with the absolute value of 2x plus 1, which is what I was trying to break down. And that's it for section 6.1.